what's up everybody? I'm back again. Wanted to go and do a quick video here on the grading process and what exactly card graders are looking for when they grade. Now, typically I go through PSA the most. I have used SGC and HGA and a few other ones as well. And I'm going to do a separate video on the different grading companies and what you should look for from each of them because each of them is good at certain things and bad at others. And, you know, depending on what you're trying to accomplish, there's certain ones that you should go for and then there's certain ones you should avoid. But that's not what we're here to discuss today. Today we're going to talk about what exactly these graders are looking for. Now, of course, you might think the grading process is pretty arbitrary, right? Like it's a human doing it, and they might have, you know, varying degrees of critique, right? And so some days they might do better than others. And so it's an inexact science. And so that's what you have to get into your head to begin with, is that this is an inexact science. Sometimes it's just not going to come up the right way, right? Like a card is going to be graded differently from time to time. And I know that's not exactly what everybody wants to hear, or it kind of cheapens the grading process, but it's still better than a computerized process because humans are the ones looking at these cards at the end of the day, and computers can make mistakes too. If they get calibrated wrong or incorrectly or something, it could cause a mess of mistakes that the human eye can actually kind of take, and that's why quality control is an important thing. But this is the process we have, and this is what we have to deal with. So whenever you're looking at card grading, it's a lot like, you should think of it like diamonds, right? And when it comes to diamonds, the value of diamonds are based on 4 criteria, right? And we all know those, the C's, right? Cut, color, clarity, and carat. Now, of course, carat going to be the least relevant as far as comparison to the card game, because there's not really a carat when it comes like the size of the diamond. The size of the card doesn't really matter. But there are 4 criteria, and those 4 criteria line up pretty closely with the color clarity, because you know, when you're looking at cards, you're looking at these 4 criteria, and that's surface, corners, edges, and centering, right? And so these are the 4 main criteria, and what are they looking for in each one, and what can you get away with, and what won't you get away with? So the biggest thing you need to remember is that if you're going to get a 10, sometimes one of these criteria might not be perfect. And I know that doesn't make sense because a perfect card should be perfect. But for example, on centering, they will allow about a 60-40 centering error, or centering off center, to still allow to pass as a PSA 10. So you can get away with 60-40 centering, and the front is always more important than the back, but don't ignore the back. The back centering, still, I wouldn't send anything in that's worse than a 60-40, or you're going to get knocked down to that 9 level, probably, right? But that doesn't mean that maybe the grader doesn't knock you for that back that often. Okay, so that's centering, right? 60-40 is the max you're going to get away with on that. Now, when it comes to surface, right? Surface is what we're seeing the most issues with in the game right now, and surface is tough, right? Because you're going to have print lines, creases. Sometimes it almost looks like something got laminated underneath. I've had hair and almost like a sand type material laminated underneath my cards, and dimples as well. So what exactly, when it comes to this, will you get away with? Well, when it comes to dimples, you get away with a lot more on the back than you will on the front. But the bottom line is you can probably get away with one minor round dimple that is kind of tough to pick up to the naked eye. But after that, anything else is going to knock you down to that other level. With edges, we're pretty much just looking for a uniform cut line on the edge and no like indentation or warping along the edge where the laminate goes like compresses to the card, right? And you know exactly what I'm talking about when you see it. Sometimes it looks like wavy lines on the edge. Sometimes it looks like little imprints. And then of course, if there's damage or coloring or any type of damage to the actual edge, that's going to be a huge knock on the card and might knock you down a couple grades. But just even on a perfect card that was cut perfectly, sometimes those edges are a little bit wavy, and that's what you're looking for there. Now, of course, corners is the most self-explanatory. You just want 4 crisp, clean corners that don't have nicks, that don't have white showing, and they don't have little, if you look on the back, you can almost see like the pushing in of the card whenever the card is whenever the corner is damaged. So that's what they're looking for there. And of course, again, a thing where we're not going to have a lot of wiggle room on that. They're either sharp or they're not. And you're looking at 8 different corners. And of course, if you're looking at a die cut, it becomes extremely hard to gem that card with 27 corners on it, and that makes the process harder. I don't know if you opened any select football from last year, but that second tier of corners was really hard to get perfect. I mean, they were almost all folded back on the reverse side of the card, and so I didn't get any gems out of select this year. It was one of the hardest products to gem. But overall, I think it's a good thing whenever there's not a lot of gems coming out of a product, because we don't want to saturate the market. Everybody gets mad whenever they open a product and there's not immediately some kind of card worth sending to PSA to grade in there. But that's not really what we would want. We want those cards to maintain their value. And if everybody's pulling a PSA 10 out of every box, then they're meaningless, right? We want the PSA 10 to be a premium. We want the SGC 10 to be a premium. We don't want everybody and their brother to be able to do it, or else it's not really worth anything, right? The prices will decline, the supply will increase, and we'll just have another junk era, except it'll just be of slabbed cards. Hopefully this video was helpful in describing some of the things that you can look for. Now, maybe your eyesight is bad, so on the surface and the edges and that kind of thing, I do recommend using a cheap loupe. I ordered one on eBay, and they just magnify and illuminate the surface about 10 times, which is what PSA is using. They're using a 10 times magnifier on the card. And so if you want to really get a good feel for what they're looking at, you might want to do that. Or maybe your eyesight's just bad and you don't want to squint your eyes, because sometimes it is hard for me to look at these corners. Make sure you're using lots of lighting, especially I recommend using your iPhone flashlight to look for surface issues. You might not pick them up under a regular lighting situation, but with the flashlight, you can definitely see a lot of things that you wouldn't see. And at the very least, one of my biggest things of advice to give is just don't be too romantic with the idea of what you want versus what you actually have. Everybody wants to gem a card, but don't lie to yourself, right? If it's got an imperfection, admit that it has an imperfection and work within those parameters. Say, okay, well, the best I'm going to get on this is a 9. Am I willing to send it in while still getting a 9? I don't know. But don't lie to yourself. Not every card is gemmed. Not every card is going to be a gem. It's supposed to be a hard thing to do. In my experience, though, I have gemmed at a rate over 90%, and I'm well over several hundred cards sent. So obviously I've got an eye for what to look for. I've never gotten an 8 on a modern card. I did send a Joe Montana that I've had for 25 years that I really didn't care about it, and I got a 7, which was a really good grade for a 1981, but I'm not really like looking for a 10 on that. So I didn't get, that's probably the lowest grade I've ever gotten. But on anything modern, I've never gotten below a 9, and that's because I use this process of checking the surface, the edges, the corners, and the centering, right? And I don't lie to myself on any of those. And as long as you follow this and you check those things out, you'll be able to gem a lot of cards, and you can probably do this process yourself. Now, of course, something to consider here is that PSA membership is $99 a year. You do get a free loop credit, but maybe it's something worth looking into for yourself rather than going through a service or not. But if you do need to go through a service, I do offer it for $30 a card. There's no maximum. Now, when I say no maximum, I mean no maximum amount of cards. I had a guy bring me a 1986 Jordan at the last show. I will happily submit that card for him, but I want to do that separate from a bulk order because that's going to go on its own. It's going to have its own price attached to it, all of that. But if you're looking to sub something simple, you don't feel like getting the membership, going through the process, buying the right cases, knowing what to look for, all of that, send them to me. I'll send them out to PSA for you for a $30 charge. I'll send them back to you. I'll give you on-demand tracking. I'll provide all the things that you need. And of course, as you know, I know the process very well. Real quick, wanted to shout out Filth Bomb. You see the shirt I'm wearing here. Filth Bomb breaks. They're the ones that hit the 1-of-1 Jackson Holiday Superfractor Killing Bowman Draft. They gave me this t-shirt at the National. I met those guys. They were really cool. And of course, my loyalty is cheap. All it costs is a t-shirt and a couple hellos and handshakes, and I will shout you out. So if you want to send me free merch to shout out on the channel, go ahead and do so. If you liked this video, go ahead and like, subscribe to the page. Go ahead and share it with a friend. I'm always sharing card content, flipping content, how to make money, how to sell on eBay, how to sell on Amazon, all of that stuff. So if that's the kind of stuff you're into, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. But in the meantime, keep on flipping, keep on ripping.